When the mind and body are at peace, then the soul is in harmony. But when rage boils over, when peace and serenity turns to malice, hatred, and wrathful fury, the soul becomes twisted, unyielding, and soon it is rejected by not only the body but by death itself. In Japanese folklore, there are legends of a form of spirit called an Onryo, a type of yurei whose death was so violent and so filled with hate and contempt that their spirits could not find peace in death. Instead, the spirit remains, tied to the place or the one who did them wrong, and eager to punish those who wronged them. There is no reasoning with an Onryo. They obey nothing but their own bloodthirst. But the entity, through his twisted machinations, was able to acquire for himself one of the most vengeful Onryo in all of history. Welcome back to the realm of the entity, a realm of monsters, fiends, and fear, where unwitting survivors must struggle to flee and escape ravenous and bloodthirsty murderers who have no other inclination than to maim, mutilate, and kill in the name of their twisted deity. Today, we're going to take a look at a newcomer to Dead by Daylight who I've loved as a horror movie icon for years. Sadako Yamamura, or as many call her, the Ring Girl. And no, we're not talking about Samara Morgan. That's a different movie entirely. I hate that I have to keep making that distinction because they're very different movies.
Holy Jesus. What is that? What the fuck is that? What is that, Private Pile?
Sadako Yamamura was born in 1947 to a psychic named Shizuko Yamamura and Dr. Haihachiro Ikuma. Although it's possible that Ikuma wasn't Sadako's true father, as it's implied in her film that Sadako may have been the result of Shizuko's sexual intercourse with a sea demon of some kind.
Nani?
Yeah. Sadako, like her mother, displayed psychic potential but had little control over it. When her mother was successfully able to use her powers to predict the eruption of Mount Mihara, her brother Takahashi tells everyone about it, wanting the world to know of Shizuko's gift. Dr. Ikuma, wanting to prove the existence of ESP, invited Shizuko to perform live in Tokyo to prove her abilities. She did so, and the crowd was impressed, but a journalist in the crowd stood up during the performance, proclaiming her to be a fraud, and moved for all the other journalists in the room to join him in his declaration.
Picture.
Sadako, watching from backstage, became angry and lashed out with her mind to silence the journalist, accidentally killing him in the process. Shizuko, publicly humiliated and criticized for the event, went on to commit suicide to atone for the event, and Sadako herself fell into a deep depression. Dr. Ikuma, outraged and terrified of the power of Sadako, beat her over the head and threw her into a well where she fell to the bottom, her limbs broken and her cries unanswered. Desperately, she tried to crawl out of the well, but every time she failed. She tried so frequently and viciously that she eventually lost all her fingernails, stripped away from repeated attempts. As she lay in the wet and dank bottom of the well, the only thing she had was anger, hatred, and malice. Kept alive for literally 30 years by that very malice and hatred, she did not age, grow, or mature, only lay a broken shell. In that time, the property was sold and turned into a mountain resort. The well that Sadako lay in was built over by a resort cabin, and a television placed right above her resting place. A careless family left a VCR cassette in the VCR player when they left the cabin. Seeing her chance, Sadako poured all of her hate and rage into that one cassette through her powers of ninja, cursing it as a virus would. Now the tape is cursed, filled with the corrupted and twisted visages of Sadako's past, her memories, and her pain. Whoever watches the video is doomed to die a horrible death 1 week later. The only means of salvation is to copy the cassette tape and give it to someone else and have them watch it, passing the curse to someone else and making you culpable. In a way, it is her ultimate form of revenge. All will suffer or be culpable. Die at the hand of the one the world wronged, or give your fate to another and know you have done to them what you have done to me. A twisted and demented means of vengeance, and the entity values cunning and deviousness such as this. As her curse spreads upon the world of men, the entity will take her rage into his own realm as well, welcoming this young and exceptionally outraged spirit into his own home of fear and damnation. For true rage does not differentiate, it merely destroys all it touches. Now, I've watched both the original Ringu movie and Ringu 2, as well as the American-made The Ring movies, and all are excellent in their own ways. And the Ringu and Ringu 2 movies are exceptional forms of Japanese horror, to say the least. They were the influence for such later works as Ju-on the Grudge, Blackwater, and others. Sadako herself is considered the famous staple of J-horror, and it was her story that gave us the American adaptation The Ring in the first place, where Sadako is replaced with Samara Morgan.
You're so ugly you could be a modern art masterpiece.
Now, if I'm being honest, I prefer Sadako over Samara as a general rule, but that is a topic for another video. The thing I adore about Sadako in Dead by Daylight is not only do we have a child killer now, which I wasn't sure how they do that, and I actually think they did it very well, but Sadako is a little unique. Unlike most of the other killers in Dead by Daylight, the Ring movie was less about the imposing presence of a killer and more about the atmosphere of fear being created. In fact, Sadako doesn't make an official appearance with her legendary TV crawling entrance until the very end of the film. But the scene has become so immortalized in our consciousness that it is now tied with any Sadako appearance. The film actually does a clever job of inserting TVs expertly into different places, presented in a manner to create a haunting idea that the TVs themselves are sinister, hiding a dangerous entity behind them. This is expanded on in Ring 2 when one of the girls cursed by Sadako is afraid to even look at TVs. The funny thing about having Sadako as the Onryo is the fact that in Dead by Daylight, she's actually not the first Onryo in the game. The Spirit would actually qualify as an Onryo herself, though her backstory and lore seem more inspired from Ju-on the Grudge rather than the Ring. But I'll talk more about the Spirit in her dedicated video. Back to Sadako. It's not hard to recognize why Sadako does what she does. Vengeful anger, lashing out at a world she feels wronged her. But more than that, I think there's a feeling of betrayal. Sadako feels betrayed by the people she was devoted to. Her mother, who took her own life out of shame when all Sadako was trying to do was defend her honor. Dr. Ikuma, who had promised her mother's future and fame, only to throw Sadako down a well. And her uncle Takahashi, who convinced her mother to appear in public appearances in the first place. Her family betrayed her, hurt her, left her for dead. How could they do that to her? If her family would not give her love and live for her, then how could anyone else? That's why she feels no sadness or remorse for the ones she kills. To her, the world is nothing but an enemy. Every person who watches her cassette tape is just another person who partook of her hatred. They have experienced a small taste of the pain she's endured, and now they will die knowing it, contemplating it, fearing it. But for some, it's worse. Some who have not watched the tape but have interacted with those who have will sometimes be tormented by Sadako for the rest of their lives, never knowing a moment's peace and constantly being reminded of the terror of before. She's a tragic creature, a child in search of love, though she herself never knew it. Since she is denied love in life and in death, she has none to offer and can only offer her burning hatred. It makes me feel incredibly sorry for her. But I'm also going to keep my distance from her cassette if it's all the same to you. Sadako, being a child, obviously lacks the power or physique to lift survivors or use conventional weapons. Instead, she uses her psychic powers to great effect in the entity's realm. She strikes out with a ring of vengeance, thrusting her hand forward and striking with concentrated force and rage, which can cause physical harm to a survivor. She lifts survivors by the throat when carrying them, and she crushes pallets, opens lockers, and breaks generators with the same psychic power. It's not as hardcore to me as when the Cenobite summons chains for all this, but it's still pretty cool. Especially when you turn the prey to face you as you lift them up. Very neat way to get that close-up of their terrified face as you raise them off the ground. Now, the Onryo's power itself is complicated, and I'd be lying if I didn't think it was a little hard to understand. I'll explain. The power is called Deluge of Fear. When the match starts, you are unmanifested. While in this state, you are invisible to survivors from over 24 meters away. You also have the undetectable status effect, which means that you have no terror radius and do not leave a red stain where you're looking. Once within 24 meters of the survivors, you are intermittent in your visibility, like a staticky TV. In other words, you'll kind of pop in and out of visibility. The Onryo cannot attack survivors while in this state. but she can interact with the environment, such as breaking generators or opening lockers. In order to attack, the Onryo must manifest herself, which makes her fully visible to survivors and allows her to strike them. She can demanifest herself at any time by holding down the power button, again. So far, nothing wrong here. In fact, I like this power at the beginning of matches before the survivors know where I am, so I can bamboozle them a little and get an early hit. Plus, since survivors can actually run through your body, you can twist them up and make them run in a direction they weren't prepared for. But now things get a bit complicated. All throughout the match are various TVs, most of them located near generators. The Onryo, while demanifested, can teleport to a TV anywhere on the map, much like Freddy Krueger, and crawl out of that TV. Once she projects herself, Sadako gains a temporary movement speed boost, is automatically manifested, and she leaves behind a passive effect on the TV. The TV will turn off, and any survivor within 16 meters of that TV will be afflicted with the condemned status effect, which builds over time based on various other factors that we'll get into. When a survivor's condemned status effect is filled, Killer Instinct exposes them to Sadako for 6 seconds, and then when Sadako downs them, she can kill them instantly with an inexorable stare, the famous one-eyed downward stare that she became famous for in the movie. So how do survivors accumulate or prevent the condemned status effect? This is where things get weird. Alright, try to follow me. A survivor can walk up to any TV and retrieve its VHS tape, which turns off the TV temporarily. While holding a VHS tape, they can turn off any TV they see in the environment as well. Doing this prevents Sadako from projecting through them, but it also adds more condemnation to the survivor. Their survivor will also accumulate condemnation over time while carrying a VHS tape. Removing a VHS tape from a TV gives an auditory warning to Sadako, and the aura of the TV is revealed to the survivor. But returning a tape to a TV will remove some condemnation, but will activate the TV again for Sadako to use. Okay, so let's discuss the good. Sadako has the potential to combine Freddy's power and the Wraith's power to spectacular effect. By bamboozling survivors, she can get a great edge on them. I like to use her power of projection by starting a chase, guessing where the survivor is headed, and then projecting to a TV in front of them or in the path where they're headed. I spawn out and then boom! And I give them a nice little scare. And even if I was wrong, there's a chance I'll spawn near a generator that is being worked on, so I can spook the survivors working on it. In this way, Sadako can create her atmosphere of fear, which she was so good at making in the movie. You don't know where or when she will appear, and that can be very nerve-wracking for survivors. But the negative lies in the condemnation part of her powers. It's a little confusing. I'm not even sure I fully 100% understand it, and I greatly expect someone to come in the comments section and explain to me how wrong I am about it. I've only successfully killed someone once using it, and while satisfying, I'd be lying if I said I had fully planned it out that way. The way I think about it is, think about the Executioner, or Pyramid Head. He leaves behind these trails of barbed wire. If a survivor runs through it, then they're marked, and you can send them to a Cage of Atonement. If they escape the Cage of Atonement that time, and then they run through the barbed wire again, and you down them, you can execute them. Instantly. You can just straight up kill them. I think that was kind of the similar idea they were going with Sadako. The idea being, if you fill up too much condemnation through the TV screens, and through not doing your job of keeping cassettes going, then the Onryo can kill you. The problem is, with the Executioner's ability, the survivors might not have a choice but to run through his traps. Meanwhile, with the TVs, I almost feel like a survivor could purposefully just avoid them. I don't know. like I said, I don't fully understand it myself. I think her powers are unique and a creative concept, but maybe a little room for improvement or at least clarification. Now, like all killers, she comes with 3 unique perks, and hoo boy are these perks awesome. The Onryo has Scourge Hook, Floods of Rage, Call of Brine, and Merciless Storm. With Scourge Hook's Floods of Rage, 4 hooks in the trial become Scourge Hooks. When a survivor on a Scourge Hook is rescued, the aura of all other survivors are revealed for a brief period, allowing you to keep map control and get an idea of where your prey is going and what they're up to. I like using this because even if they get off the hook, because I know that survivors have many different ways of getting off the hook, either by themselves or helping each other out through altruism, by them doing that, I can look around and say, all right, what's everyone else up to? And I can usually find that one survivor who's not being a troll and is actually doing a gen, and then I'll know, all right, I got you. Call of Brine might be one of the best perks in the game, though. It's one of my favorites. When you break a generator, Call of Brine activates for 60 seconds. In that time, the generator regresses at up to 200% normal regression speed, and you can see its aura. Each time a survivor works on a generator affected with this perk, and if they get a good skill check, it gives you a noise notification, allowing you to know that someone is working on the generator again. Talk about gen control, just keeping that eye on them. But if you combine that same ability with her third perk, watch and be amazed with Merciless Storm. With Merciless Storm active, when a generator is repaired up to 90%, the survivor is then faced with non-stop continuous skill checks. Missing even one of them, or stopping repairs altogether, will cause the generator to explode and be blocked by the entity. You want a perk combo that can make survivors struggle to finish gens? Combine these two, Call of Brine and Merciless Storm. I have had so much success with it. I know that some people in different videos have argued that the Onryo is weak and that she's not very good, and with the powers maybe, but with these 2 perks I genuinely feel like they are really, really strong. But there's no question, the Onryo is a mixed bag for the community. Most everyone can agree she's off-putting. I mean, she's the first killer with a literal jump scare in the load-up menu.
Just crawled out of the well. It's so... Ah! Jesus Christ!
Oh, my life, you bitch!
I can't! Stop! Oh my god! Oh my god! What the hell? Oh, bitch!
Her ability to bamboozle is nothing short of terrifying, and while she might not be imposing in stature, she's got a creepiness factor all her own. When it comes to vengeful ghosts and wraiths in media, Sadako will always be one of my favorites. It's not because she appears especially scary, nor is it that she kills exceptionally often or in the most gruesome of ways. For you see, it's not the effects or the graphics of Sadako that instill fear. It's the atmosphere of hatred she gives off, the sensation of pain and anger in every action she takes. When I designed my original character, the Mother, I wanted to combine the ideas of sinister anger with a sympathetic motivation. But with Sadako, sure, we can't deny the monster she is, but at the same time, I feel sympathy for a child who did not receive the love she so desperately craved. And now all that remains is a husk, filled only with anger and vengeance. But be careful how long you gaze at the shining screen. Rage waits quietly behind it, driving you mad with anticipation. And at the zenith, at the end of madness, comes death. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Take care.
You're not even gonna try to run? Okay then.
Yo, if you didn't want me to kill you, you should have said something!
Don't sit so close to the TV, little guy. It's bad for your eyes. Among other things.
Chase me, Susie! Chase me!
Good.
Damn it! If I can't kill you physically, I'll just kill you emotionally.
Are you lighting up? What are you screaming at?
Wow! Okay then. Guess all I'm good for is scaring people then. No